read this military biography earlier today in the cemetery, but he is one of our special heroes from St. Mary's, whose life was cut short way too young during his service. Richard Allen Herzing was born in DuBois on November 7, 1964. The parents Dennis and Janice Herzing, and attended high school in St. Mary's. He was known throughout his life as Rick by his family and friends. He joined the Navy at the very end of 1981 through its delayed entry program, and in September of 1982, he reported to boot camp in San Diego. Afterwards, he attended several specialized naval training schools in Tennessee and Florida in order to be designated as a qualified naval aircraft crewman. He then received orders in October of 1983 to report to the Fleet Air Reconnaissance Squadron, BQ-2, stationed in Rota, Spain. In February of 1985, Rick's duties took him to the Hellinikon Air Force Base in Athens, Greece. On February 2nd, he was on liberty in a local tavern called Bobby's Bar, a favorite hangout for American servicemen stationed there. Shortly before midnight, a powerful explosion occurred inside the bar. A homemade time bomb hidden inside a briefcase had been secretly placed underneath one of its tables. An anti-American terrorist group called the National Front claimed responsibility for the bomb because they believed the United States was supporting Turkey's continued occupation of northern Cyprus. They said they had deliberately targeted American servicemen. 80 patrons were injured, including 69 Americans, both servicemen and dependents. Rick suffered burns on his back and a perforated eardrum. He was flown out to an American military hospital in West Germany for treatment. Although he was not officially awarded a Purple Heart for the wounds he suffered from this international terrorist attack, the cause and severity of his injuries certainly made him eligible to receive one. In early 1986, Rick's aircraft was assigned to the aircraft carrier USS Coral Sea, which participated in freedom of navigation operations against Libya in defiance of Muammar Gaddafi's unlawful claim that the entire Gulf of Sidra was within Libya's territorial waters. Due to Libyan response to terrorist attacks against Americans, the U.S. sent warships into the contested Gulf. On March 23, 1986, Libya responded with fighter aircraft and warships. The aircraft Rick was assigned to provide critical surveillance data and warnings of the incoming combatants, allowing the fleet carriers to respond quickly and efficiently to the threats. All Libyan aircraft were turned back, and 4 Libyan warships were damaged or sunk during the conflict. Later, as a result of another Libyan-sponsored terrorist attack, the task force bombed land targets within Libya itself. For the success of these engagements, Rick received a unit commendation from the Secretary of the Navy and a letter of commendation from the Battle Force 6th Fleet Commander. On the fateful evening of January 25, 1987, Ranger 12, the call name of the EA-3B Sky Warrior aircraft, in which Rick was a crewman, was launched from the aircraft carrier USS Nimitz on a surveillance mission. Upon its return, after 5 unsuccessful approaches to land on the carrier, Ranger 12 was ordered to give up and instead head for the Naval Air Base on Crete. Not having enough fuel, Ranger 12 was first sent to the duty airborne tanker for refueling. Unfortunately, this day, the duty tanker was an A-7 Corsair II, known because of its single-engine exhaust to often have a trailing fuel hose and receiving basket that wouldn't hold steady. When the pilot of Ranger 12 attempted to align the refueling probe at the front of his aircraft to it, he unfortunately jammed it too hard into the basket, crimping it, thus rendering Ranger 12 now unable to refuel from the air. With limited fuel remaining, their best survivable choice was to go back to the Nimitz. Aboard the carrier, orders were immediately issued to rig the barricade. The flight deck personnel immediately installed an arresting wire 24 feet above the deck, with an array of nylon straps hanging from it. As Ranger 12 approached off the engines. Ranger 12's front wheels caught only the top of the net, thus pulling it nose down onto the deck, past the barricade, where it then skidded in a shower of sparks to the end of the angled flight deck. It fell 60 feet, impacting the seawater and breaking in half. A search and rescue helicopter saw no movement with it from inside the aircraft. Several minutes later, Ranger 12 sank with her entire crew still aboard. The 3-day search for survivors was called off with all 7 crew members listed as lost at sea. Rick, at the time of his loss, was in his 5th year of service, having re-enlisted for another tour of duty, possibly planning to make the Navy his career. He was a positive, outgoing individual who gave 110% to everything he did. He loved to teach, passing on his skills to others. He enjoyed life and never let things get him down. In a final note of pure irony, another St. Mary's veteran and a cousin of Rick's, Marine Captain David Edward Fritz, was also lost at sea on July 8, 1975, when the aircraft he was flying in crashed on a training mission from the very same aircraft carrier, the USS Nimitz. Thank you.